Hey, everybody, it's Mike Miedler, President and CEO of Century 21 Real Estate. Catch me this week on the Jesse T Show.
Mike, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Jesse, really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Yeah, man, it's been great. We've been connecting through the last couple of months. Scott Carson got us plugged in together. Great guy, great podcaster, really doing great things in the real estate world. And obviously, great people surround themselves with amazing people. And that's how we connected. And we were supposed to do this a couple of months ago, almost now, when I was back in Tulum. But I was on the beach, didn't have the best Wi-Fi, and actually came down with COVID. So I'm glad that we pushed it back a few weeks.
Oh man, well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's going to be awesome. And he is a really cool guy. I appreciated the opportunity. He's trying to show people how to, build wealth and do some creative stuff from the finance side. So today, Jesse, hopefully we'll have just as fun and interactive as a conversation as I had with him.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Before we jumped on, we had a lot of commonality already with, being into health, wellness, fitness, being from the Northeast. I'm a wealth manager by trade, so I help people create wealth in my own way. So there's a lot of synergies here, but just for some context and for people to hear a little bit more about you, tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of who you are and some context on your background.
Yeah, Jesse, absolutely. So first and foremost, I am a born and raised North Jersey kid. I like you, I didn't stray too far from home and have a lot of those true roots until you actually, made the leap to Atlanta. But I got to tell you, I'm grounded in being, from a blue collar neighborhood and a blue collar family. First kid in my family to go to college. I've been in this real estate game for, I tell people I literally got started at the ground level. I kind of joke around that I got started in the mailroom after college. I had this awesome opportunity to start up, literally working with Century 21. And for the past 22 years, it's literally 22 years this month of February that I've been with the organization. And it's been a fun run.
So let's take it back a little bit. So a Jersey kid, blue collar, very similar to we had no collar growing up where I grew up. And it was very much a tough town, fighting town. I got into a ton of fights as a kid, some that I instigated, some that, I was jumped, so to speak. And so what was your experience like growing up in Jersey? It was a little bit more kind of similar, like rough kind of growing up and you had to fend for your own. How was that for you?
I don't want to pretend that it was that rough. I'd be lying if I didn't say I got into my fair share of scuffles as a young youth, but I know your neck of the woods well. We still have great representation from a Century 21 perspective in those marketplaces. Obviously we serve all around the globe. But it was one of those great towns that I grew up in. I was really fortunate to have a father who, like yours, actually passed away probably too early. That really showed me the meaning of hard work and, getting your hands dirty and mixing it up and, putting in an honest day's work in order to, achieve what you want to achieve for yourself as an individual. And I think that's really plays well into what you're doing in your life's journey, right? Showing people how you take that money that you work so hard for every single day and try to invest it, leverage it in order to make their lives better, make their families' lives better, so on and so forth. It's the American dream at heart.
Yeah, brother, you hit it on the head. I call it happy wealth, where, people that are wealthy, a lot of times they would trade anything for their health. They would trade anything for happiness, including all their assets. But if you can learn how to build happiness into your life and do the things that are important, like family or spirituality or whatever it is that makes you happy, I think that's the key to success. You could definitely have a lot of money and a lot of nice things, but if you're not happy or healthy, what's the point? So,
Amen.
So for you, were you always attracted to the real estate game, or how did you get into this about 22 years or more ago?
Yeah. So great question. So, Century 21 at one point back in the mid 90s was owned by a large firm called Sendon. It was a publicly traded, awesome franchise business that was in the hotel business, it was in the real estate space, car rental, and it was right here in my backyard. And I actually graduated with a degree in criminal justice, right? I wanted to be a state trooper or FBI, I watched too many episodes of X-Files way back when, but, and coming out of school, it was just like, hey, I got to find a job. I got to find something that's going to pay me some money. I got to buy a car. I got to figure out, how I'm going to fend for myself. And so a friend of mine, family friend, introduced me to this opportunity. And like I said, I kind of took a role at the ground level and just started building up from there. So, I was lucky enough to fall into the real estate business. And I got to tell you, it has been such a, I would say literally getting almost like an MBA in life, right? It's just showed me so many ins and outs and so many nooks and crannies of this great country and around the globe, and meeting so many different entrepreneurs. And honestly, Jesse, if you really think about it, real estate is kind of, as I talked earlier, it's literally at the forefront of the American dream, because, for people who are aspiring to that dream of home ownership every day, and building wealth through, investing in real estate. And it's not just, a financial transaction that might be the largest one that you do in your life, but it's also so emotionally connected, because generally when you're buying real estate, it's connected to some type of life event, right? Having a baby, getting married, moving to a new city. There's just such emotional connection. And I'm just so proud to be in this industry, and so proud of all the real estate professionals around the globe that literally deliver for individuals who are looking for that dream in this country and around the world.
That's beautiful, brother. There's two things there that I want to tease out. So with the real estate, and you hit it on the head, you're an expert in this field. Most wealth is transferred through real estate in the entire world. And most millionaires have been created up until recently with the advent of internet and stuff like this, but through real estate. And the other thing that you mentioned was huge for me was a couple of years ago when you mentioned your father passed. I'm sorry to hear that. My father passed as well. And, we had a house in our family name for 70 years. So it was a Tedesco owned household for 70 years. And it was a life event. Like you said, my dad passed away and he was a bachelor and he had the house to himself. And, I was the one that was going to get the house. And, it was incredible because that house has seen a lot of life. That house has seen a lot of life experiences and emotions. And it was one of those things where I debated, should I keep the house and rent it out and have a couple of units? And it just didn't make sense living down here in Atlanta. So we sold the house, and it was a beautiful transition. It was I'm in the world of financial planning and I do understand these types of transactions, but, and it's so weird, the serendipity on this, because the agent that helped me is a Century 21 agent. He's one of the top agents in the Northeast, Ed DeVoe. And his kid I went to kindergarten with. So much like you growing up in Jersey, the people that you grow up with, you kind of hang around if they're good people and you do life with and business with. And he was the go-to guy to do this transaction. And my dad actually said before he passed away, he said, Joe Mario from Mario Real Estate in Century 21 in East Boston is doing this transaction. I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah, Jesse, I love that story. And look, I mean, I actually know those guys and Ed DeVoe, and I know the Mario brothers. And so it's awesome that you were able to do that, and what a small world it is. But to your point, you were probably doing that from a distance, right? I mean, you were down in Atlanta. And so here you are, you're handing over so many, dreams and memories and emotional connections into this huge financial transaction from, call it 1,000 miles away down in Atlanta up to Boston. And it's to think about what a real estate professional does in order to navigate that for you and give you that peace of mind and emotionally connect you, but financially secure you. It's just, like I said, it's a great industry. And I'm super happy that you were able to do it with Ed DeVoe and the Century 21 Mario team.
Me too, man. That transaction doesn't happen without them. They pulled so many strings. They had so much ties to the community and different organizations. And there was so much things going on in this transaction that they made it super seamless. And again, I traveled up there, but I came back to Georgia and they took care of everything from 1,000 miles away. So thank you to a great company. Thank you for all that you do.
Well, so I say this all the time, and follow me here. If I'm going off target, just bring me back. But folks don't understand when you go into a real estate process. There's when you find the house that you're looking for on your phone, right? Whatever website you're using, from the time you make an offer to the time you actually get the keys and put them in that front door, there's literally 150 to 180 different steps in the process. And as you said, people don't recognize how much a great real estate professional means in that process, because to your point, they're navigating not just all of these different nuances. They become a market knowledge expert, a negotiator, a mover, a contract, sometimes a marriage counselor. And I joke around that, at the end of the day, people don't recognize how much goes into it. But to your point, and I love this, is that they have to know everything about the community and the market. And they're so tied and interconnected with the places that they serve that they really use those relationships to basically deliver that experience to the end consumer. So I think you make a great point about the community relationship that real estate professionals have.
It's insane. It's a relationship business, and life is all about relationships. The most important currency we have is relationships. And the most important asset we have is time that we don't get back. So if you can have great relationships with people that matter and you focus your time and effort on those relationships, that's how life is done well. So thank you again for having great people in place to be able to do that. Now, as far as going to your story a little bit, how does a kid from Jersey, a self-described blue collar kid, jump from mailroom, which is like, it's like, you've seen this in movies before. The guy or girl starts out in mailrooms and they end up, running the company or starting their own thing. What was that trajectory like? So what were the pit stops along the way to go from mailroom to CEO?
Yeah. So I took many of them. Right. And I think the way you do that really is, I say this in life in general, it's about being energetic, enthusiastic, and really inquisitive, asking a bunch of questions, because whether you're starting in a corporate company or you're starting your own business or you're interfacing, like you said, with relationship, with your own personal relationships or consumers, clients, whatever it is, people generally sense just energy, enthusiasm, and asking questions. Like, people love to talk about their lives and what's happening. And I always am under the belief, like, you should, as a great salesperson does, ask 70% of the questions and listen 70% of the time and do 30% of the talking. So I think it's that general energy and enthusiasm. I said to you earlier, I love your poster there in the background, because I think mindset every single day is a huge component to having success in life, no matter what you do. And maybe if we get a chance, I'll explore what I call the 121% rule later in the show. But it's literally about just going through that process of asking a lot of questions and learning a lot about your business and showing that enthusiasm. And I did look, we all do in life. We take a lot of steps in that process to grow ourselves. And we push ourselves way outside of our comfort zones, right? I've been dropped in the deep end of the pool a lot of times, and it was like, hey, go figure out operations, go figure out this referral network, go figure out how to sell franchises. And so, I got that opportunity because of the enthusiasm level and the inquisitiveness that I've brought to all of the relationships and all of the great mentors that I've had in this business, and that, coached me along the way. So I think it's, again, just that general enthusiasm is really an important component to what you can become as a professional.
Yeah. The excitement, the motivation, the hard work, all that stuff that's built, the thirst for learning and always growing. Once you stop learning, you get capped out and you can't grow. And so having those innate traits or that were built into you will serve you well. And obviously a lot of this has to do with your work ethic and what you've created, but the entire time you're leading up to that ending of that piece of that conversation, I'm like, mentors. And you said mentor. And so talk a little bit about the most impactful people, whether they were direct mentors and you had a relationship with them, or maybe it was a book that you read or an idea or philosophy that you vibed with. What were some of those key learnings in those types of relationships that you had with your mentors? What was that like?
Yeah, I've had a lot of great mentors along the way. Former, past, and leaders of the Century 21 system, presidents and CEOs, folks inside of the Realgy organization, which we are an owned company by, who've really kind of just pushed me. And I think, to your point, Jesse, it's all about learning, right? You constantly want to figure out how to improve yourself day in and day out. I say this about real estate, like, the business is not rocket science, but you constantly have to be learning. You constantly have to be opening your mind and figuring out the new and innovative ways that you can make yourself more efficient, make yourself more effective, make yourself a better person, so that you can serve your consumers better. So, I've had a lot of different mentors. In fact, I've had formal relationships where, I've been coached. I think, even, Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, the very best at their sports and in their games, they all have coaches to push them beyond their limits and just, maybe tweak their game 1% or just a little bit that makes that much of a difference. So I think, whether it's a book, and I'm sitting here looking at my bookshelf of books here, whether it's reading a book whether it's taking some type of formal education, maybe going back to another class, learning something about a technology you're interested in. We've always got to be expanding our minds and our horizons that way. And whether that's through a mentor who's going to, be able to push you in that direction, or doing it informally, just sitting down on the couch with a book. I think you always have to be learning, always figuring out how to acquire new skills and techniques in order to improve yourself.
I can remember as a kid in Boston growing up, I had the most ridiculous questions for people, and I would ask the most perfect stranger. Like I'd be walking down like Financial District in Boston, some tall guy, and I loved sports growing up. So, playing basketball, and I was always obsessed with being able to dunk the ball before I could actually do it. and I would ask, I would look at some tall dude in a 3-piece suit and be like, "Hey, can you dunk?" And he's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, it was just like, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. And that morphed into today where I have mentors and I have people that guide me. And what I've learned through the years is this concept, and you may have heard of it before, but the rule of thirds, or the 33% rule, where you have 3 people in your life. You have people that are ahead of you that can guide you and raise you to where they are. That's the first third. The next third is kind of where you're at now. And you have people that you can go into battle with, and you can learn and you can do life with on that same level playing field and share notes and all that stuff. And then the next third is the third that's coming up behind you. And now you can turn around as a leader or someone who's gained this information, and that wheel of knowledge just gets completed by teaching them as well.
You know what I love about that, Jesse? So I speak with a lot of our professionals from around the globe constantly. And I say this all the time. I say the best thing about the Century 21 system is the people in the Century 21 system. And it acts is exactly that third. Remind me, what's the name of the concept again?
Rule of thirds.
Rule of thirds. It acts exactly in that same concept that you just spelled out, which is, there are so many different entrepreneurs and so many different professionals from around the globe and in marketplaces all over this country and in 85 different countries. And what was especially relevant even over last year, when the entire world was facing what I would call this challenge that we were all facing with this global pandemic, is how we all came together to basically help push one another forward. So whether it was you were learning up from people who were facing what you were facing, in that adversity, and weighing on them to get, insight and thoughts and just be pushed to, get outside of your comfort zone and learn from them, or whether it was you were helping that person downstream, the ones who are up and coming, try to improve their business and improve their game from a leadership perspective or what have you. That's what the Century 21 network provides. Is it allows everybody to share those best practices, to mastermind, and to push one another to be better. Because, at the end of the day, we're all trying to solve the same thing. And there's probably not another, if you have a goal or something, there's probably not another person in the system who hasn't tried to figure that out for themselves at some point in their career or over their, their business life. And so that's one of the key elements to why our system is so successful and why it's so great, because you have that rule of the thirds that exists naturally within our organization.
Yeah, this is a great kind of segue into what you were talking about earlier. You called it the 121%. What is that?
Yeah, I call it the 121% rule. And I think it's going to line up with probably a lot of, probably your similar mindsets. But I call it, no matter what you're doing in life, like I said, whether it's, success in business, or my daughter who, I constantly push her on this, trying to make her, JV tennis team. Like, no matter how you go about your business, what you're trying to accomplish, there's a rule that I have called the 121% rule. And it goes simply like this. The first 50% of what it pushes people to be successful is their mindset. It's right there. Mindset on your wall. It is everything, right? It's waking up with gratitude. It's waking up positive. It's waking up knowing that you're going to push yourself to be the very best that you can be today. And, there's a lot of different ways you can accomplish that. I know, look, for me, I know for you, physical activity is a way that I put myself in a positive mental mindset every single day. I get up, whether it's going to be going to take a run, working out, doing cardio, jumping on the Peloton, whatever it is, I do it first thing in the morning so that I can get my mindset sharp in order to attack the day and everything I need to do. Other people, they might meditate. They might, be spiritual. They might, like you said, read a book. whatever that is, make sure that you put yourself in a positive mental mindset every single day. And I think one of the great ways that you could also do that is gratitude. Like you said earlier, we have money isn't the end all be all. There's a lot of things that you can be thankful for and a lot of people you can be thankful for. So think about that every day before you head out and tackle what you're going to try to accomplish. The second 50% is your skills and your techniques, right? We talked about this a little bit, but it's continuously educating yourself, continuously pushing yourself to learn new things. It could be through any of those things we talked about before, reading a book, me, socializing with you and finding out that new concept on the thirds, whatever it is, you got to constantly try to elevate your game and learn new things that are going to push you professionally, personally, whatever it is. And the last, and I think probably the most important 21% is the hard work. It's taking action. It's just going out there and getting things done. And I've said this a lot, I'm sitting here in my home office today, which happens to be my basement. And I think a lot of people in the last year have allowed themselves to be distracted or, checked out, or, they're reading the news and on social media and just getting consumed with the outside world. Like every single day I write down on a list of paper what I have to do to consider my day a success. What activities do I have to accomplish? Write it down, get it done. And then at the end of the day, when you do it, reward yourself. Have a milkshake, have a glass of Coke with dinner, have a pizza, but get out there and get it done. Like you got to go to work every single day and you got to put in the activities in order to be successful.
Just that last 2-minute conversation is so much valuable information for people that listen and watch this show. And there's so much to tease out of there, but rewarding yourself is huge. And, that's part of it is doing the work and getting intentional, writing a list down. And there's these power lists. You can do different things where if I do these 5 things today, my day is a success. And it could be business related. It could be relationship related. It could be whatever it is, health and wellness, which I want to talk about that in a second because I'm really big into that world too. But having this goal in mind, and it all starts in the morning for most entrepreneurs and executives that I know and that I am look towards and emulate is gratitude. Number one, you woke up, right? Like my biggest concept that I like, part of my ethos is this Stoic philosophy called memento mori. Memento mori says, know that you're mortal, know that you must die. And let that be the only motivation that you need to have a great day and live your life well. And this came from, I've held death in my hands a couple of times in my life. So I know the value of time and the importance of showing up well during that time. And for people that are entrepreneurs and executives, there's a lot of, sometimes there's this roller coaster ride sometimes, especially when you're kind of first starting out. Like if you're in a startup business, sometimes you're at the high of the highs and sometimes it's the low of the lows. And you really got to learn how to stack gratitude. So when you wake up in the morning, number one, you're alive. Number two, if you're healthy, be thankful for your health. And then you start building these positive things, and then eventually you can kind of work yourself into a strong mindset. So as a CEO, as someone who's a high performer in all your different areas of life, I'm assuming based on kind of what I know that health and wellness is huge in your life. So what is you mentioned a little bit about your protocol, but can you walk us through your health and wellness from like nutrition to mindset to, physical activity? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, health and wellness is definitely a major component to everybody's life, and it should be. You only have one body to live in. You hear that saying all the time, and it's true. And so, for me, every single day, I've got to get up and work out. And during the winter, believe it, I do it a little bit more because I'm generally more indoors, and I know I can't be outside swimming or walking around. And so for the last few weeks, it's been on my Peloton. I know Peloton has been like a huge thing, and their stock is soared, and people are just jumping into these things. But whatever it is, I mean, it could look like anything. Jesse, I don't know if I told you this. This is a really cool story. I actually, in November of last year, did an Ironman with a couple of our Century 21 brokers.
Hell yes.
And, I went about it doing it because I followed a guy named the Iron Cowboy who we had speak at one of our events.
I know who he is. 50 marathons in 50 days or something like that. Yeah. Insane.
Totally insane. Like the physical effort to do what he did is it's unfathomable to me. Anyway, I did one, right? I did one in one day and I'm done. I checked it off the list, but it's like, for me, I think, and this is what he said, it's like, you always have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
For sure.
Whether that's physically or mentally or in what you're trying to accomplish in your life. Like, anybody can just do it day in day out and just go through the grind. But like, you should always be looking at what inspires you in your life and trying to push towards that, because I think that's what enables all of us to get up in the morning and have really big goals. And so whether they're physical goals like working out, or whether they're business goals and trying to accomplish something that you want to do, you got to understand what inspires you first and like put that front and center and remember it every single day. But to your point, like, whether you have family like I do, 4 kids, or you don't at all, you've got to be, the more you're physically fit and the more that you work out in the morning, the more mental energy it's going to give you to have that enthusiasm for life and go about your day. So, I mean, look, I'm a huge believer in physical fitness. I know you are as well. I wish my eating habits were a little bit better. Having 4 kids, being stuck at home all the time. I haven't been exactly as good as I want to be. There's a lot of ice cream in my diet and pizza, but that's one of the things I honestly, for myself, I always say, I'd like to improve. I'd like to improve. I'd like to improve. And it's, like you said, it's just trying to get a little bit better every single day in those eating habits. So
1% better every day. And then it's the 80-20 rule. I mean, I grew up Italian, so we didn't have the healthiest food, period, but it tastes amazing. Right. And it's one of those things where if 80% of your diet is nutritious and whole foods and minerals and vitamins, and the other 20% is ice cream or pizza, that's fine. But being mindful of that and then surrounding yourself, you said you had some brokers that did this Ironman with you. What were some of the things that you were learning from them? And because here's the thing, like people that haven't done an Ironman before, it's a lot of different things happening. It's a lot of mindset. It's a lot of physical, endurance, but really, from what I hear, cause I've actually, I started running myself a couple of years ago, and I'm like 6'1", 215. So I'm a bigger guy, but, I love to run, and I'm actually pretty fast. Like I place and win in these little 5Ks and 10Ks because I'm competitive as shit. And I just want to like hunt people down. And the things that you learn about yourself when you push yourself and you're uncomfortable and you overcome adversity, what were some of the things that you and the brokers that were part of your training, like what were you working on and what were you learning from them? Like how did they add value and level up your game?
I love that. So they tremendously. I mean, first and foremost, they were the ones who pushed me to do it. So, that was nowhere on my radar screen until they said, "Hey, look, we're doing this and you're doing it with us." And I was kind of like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that." And they said, "You know what? That's the difference between junior varsity and the big leagues." And I was like you, super competitive. I was like, "That's it. I'm in." So anyway, we spent, 6 or 9 months, training for this thing. It's a long haul. As you said, it's an endurance race that is more mental than it is physical. And the physicality of it is actually grueling. So if you don't know, it's a 2.5 mile swim. And so first and foremost, as I said to you earlier, I had to learn a new thing. Like I could swim, I could do laps in my pool, but I've never swum 2.5 miles, not in the ocean or in the Gulf of Mexico before. And so I had to get myself a coach. And I remember specifically, Jesse, the first week in May when I went out there to start swimming, I literally got back and forth four times in my pool, and I was like out of breath.
Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to swim for 2.5 miles? And so you had to learn, you had to study, you had to read, you had to listen to your coach, you had to continue to practice and push yourself to do something new. And so, that was one of my big learnings is like, have a team around you, have a coach, have people who are going to push you. But these brokers every single day, they were, or at least twice a week, they're texting about what they've done, what they've accomplished, what long run they've done, what long bike they've done, what they learned. I've always had a bike growing up. I'm sure you did as a kid, but I never rode a bike 112 miles. I didn't understand the nutrition that you had to go into it. And these are all things I learned throughout the process. And I think it was that pushing and that prodding. And literally, I think you could probably attest to this, but success in anything in your life requires a team. Whether that team is your family, your friends, your support group, your coach, we get so much more done together when we're all aiming in the same direction and have that support through, whoever it is that is part of that team. And I would always say, look, as an individual, guys, your goals, what you're trying to accomplish as individuals, like let your family know, let your friends know,
Yes.
like post it out there, let them hold you accountable. It'll help push you.
Big hairy ass goals or just scary goals that scare you? If your goals aren't, if they're not scaring you, they're not big enough. And accountability in a sense, right? Through that teamwork, through that people that are chirping at you through text message and getting you to act because you are competitive. But also I've found that whenever I want to accomplish something, I'll let myself down first before I'll let someone else down. And so if I can incorporate other people to be along with the journey, whether that's family, whether that's partners, whatever that is, and then putting a goal out there and then not being able to go against my word, because that's one thing I won't break. And so if I say, I'm going to go run this race in March, and I'll put it out on social media, well, you better damn be sure I'm going to get out there and get it done. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
So, you know, with being a CEO and someone at this level, you've had to learn how to, and I've learned this too as an entrepreneur, how to protect your time and how to say the art of saying no to things that aren't in alignment with it's going to help you getting to where you want to be. Before I get to that point, there's one other question I had about the training and the Ironman. Are you going to do it again?
So it's funny. The 3 guys that I did it with re-signed up, and they signed up immediately. And so right before the new year, I was starting to look, and literally because of last year's, everything was canceled. They pushed everything and they're all sold out. So that's the bottom line. I have signed up for a 100-mile bike ride in May.
Very cool.
And I've got some other physical goals that I'm going to try to accomplish. It's funny. My wife's upstairs, so I'm not going to say this too loud. I would do it again, but next year.
Well, listen, man, I'll support you in any way I can. And there's guys out there that are super inspiring, like Jesse Itzler, David Goggins, these guys that are just out there crushing it and doing all sorts of like ultra marathons and crazy things. But
Jesse, you know what? I forgot this story, and I think it'll be really relevant for kind of like your show and your audience.
Sure.
Just talking about mindset, right? So, and it might be a little bit off course, but so I did the Ironman in Panama City Beach. You can look this up. You can go to ESPN, NBC. You can go New York Times, wherever. There was a young gentleman who also did the Ironman. He was a 21-year-old from Florida. His name was Chris Nikic. Okay. Chris Nikic happened to be the first Down syndrome individual to actually attempt an Ironman. Okay. And so I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to meet him at a training swim. And, back to my original message, like he comes up to you right away, right off the bat, and hugs you. Like you could feel his energy and enthusiasm for life. Right. And so this is a kid who, when talking to his dad and his coach, and again, needing and having a support system, he set a goal for himself. He wanted to complete an Ironman, and they were going to do that together. But like his real dream, honestly, is just to be like you and me. It's like to have a car, to buy a house, to get married. Right. And this is a kid who like couldn't feed himself until he was 6 years old.
Wow.
Spent 6 years in like 7 different schools. He struggles with things that we all take for granted every single day, but he was going to complete this Ironman. And so, here I am feeling sorry for myself, not knowing if this race is going to happen or not, putting on all this training, and having the opportunity to meet this kid was just amazing. And he actually had a ton of challenges along the way. Like he stopped at a water break and got eaten by ants. He stepped on an ant pile, bitten up during part of the race. He fell off his bike at mile 80, okay? Had a huge gash in his leg. And at the very end of the race, and I can certainly, kind of like associate with this, he was just in complete pain. The marathon is the very last part. He's into like 16 hours of grueling physical activity. You can imagine how mentally challenging it is. And, his dad pulled him over on the side of the marathon. He said, look, Chris, we got a battle going on right now, okay? And you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to let your pain win or you're going to let your dreams win. And he grabbed his dad and, probably weeping, said, Dad, I'm going to let my dreams win. And 16 hours and 47 minutes into that day, literally about 13 minutes before the time limit on an Ironman, Chris crossed the finish line, became the first Down syndrome individual to ever finish an Ironman. And I got to tell you, if that doesn't speak to the human soul and the fact that if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything in life, I don't know what does. Like I said, you guys can look it up. If it's worth a read, trust me, it'll spend you 5 minutes. It's just such a inspirational story and speaks to a lot of stuff we were just talking about.
Brother, if you were here in my office right now, you'd see I had chills up and down my arms just hearing about that, because it's the human mind and it's what we can do. And there really is nothing that we can't do. Impossible is nothing. And it sounds cliche, but it's so true. I mean, I've seen amazing things in life through my own eyes and through other people's eyes and stories like this, where it really just comes down to the battle of the will and just not giving up. And even if it's sludging forward until you have 13 minutes left, I mean, how many people don't even get off the couch? Unfortunately, how many people dream. And this narrative came up in my mind earlier. We were talking about something, and it was like, most of the world's wealth is found in the graveyard because people just didn't have the discipline to execute. That's what it was. It was the 21%. It was the hard work. It was the discipline. And I like the 21 because obviously it plays into the branding for Century 21. So it's great. But the discipline to execute, that's why there are coaches. That's why there's consultants. That's why there's mentors. That's why there's leaders, because people need people to show them how to be accountable and until they can learn how to do it themselves. And sometimes they may never be able to do it themselves, but that discipline and that never give up, like that's the secret sauce to the human spirit. It's beautiful.
Right on. Right on.
So going back to that other piece in terms of your day and it's interesting for people to kind of peel back the curtain of a high level CEO. How do you manage your day? How do you protect your time? How do you artfully say no to things that don't serve the mission? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely critical. It's funny because, my team, and we just got off our strategy week with the entire organization called 2 weeks ago. But, I think it requires a laser focus in what you're trying to accomplish. Right. And we have 3 things that we're focused on as an organization from a growth perspective. And that's what we put everything through that filter. Is it going to accomplish one of these 3 goals? And it's really, really difficult to say no to a lot of good ideas that come out there. But I think you really got to be in tune with, to your point, what you're trying to accomplish in your business or what you're trying to accomplish as a personal or professional goal, and say, is this thing that, I'm being pitched on or proposed to really going to help that mission? And, I think time management is ultimately one of the most important things we can do, specifically in the real estate field, but really as professionals in general, right? Again, it goes back to what are those things that are really going to add up to move me in the direction that I need to be moved today, that are important to my business or my personal development, and make sure that you're carving out whether it's 2, 3, 4 hours to do it. Because we all get wrapped up in, like I said, like this and social media and text messages and emails. And like, sometimes guys, that's just spinning on the wheel. That's just like running on the treadmill, right? We got to really look at those things that from an activity standpoint are going to push us forward, and absolutely make sure that we're setting apart that time, the time management, blocking it out in order to accomplish those things. And whether it be first thing in the morning, during your lunch, in the evening hours, whenever you're best at it, make sure you set that time to do it.
Yep. Protect your time, protect the goal, the mission, let things those things that serve you and serve all those things. But you can, and people will appreciate if you don't waste their time. So instead of saying yes to something you're half-hearted about or something that you really don't align with, if you tell someone, hey, it's just not for me right now, or it's not something for me in general, a lot of times you'll gain more respect for that versus, pissing someone off. So,
and Jesse, you said it earlier. I mean, I like the only thing we can't build more of in this world is our time.
That's
you
it.
said it earlier. So
it's the most important commodity we'll ever have. And every second is an absolute gift. And so thinking about this last year or so, it's been a wild ride for everyone. It's been pandemic, it's been political, it's been all these things. How has that not necessarily affected, but how have you had to learn to coexist? And what have you seen, throughout the country and also different countries in the world in terms of relation of COVID? And how does that affect like the day-to-day operations of the company?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, we as a real estate industry, I mean, I'm sure everybody who knows or has, read anything in the business news knows that real estate around the globe has changed. I mean, it's pushing forward. It's extremely positive. I mean, there was a meme the other day that, that I saw on social media. Is like, remember, buyer asked, I'm thinking about buying a house. How's the market? And the real estate agent replies, remember you're trying to find toilet paper back in April? Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like, so, I mean, like our business has been that crazy because I think people are reevaluating their homes, right? Yeah. I mean, you see people putting on additions and making Zoom rooms and, looking for, as I said, I have my home office, my home gym, my home cafeteria, all right here in the basement. My home school is upstairs with my 4 kids learning. And so, we all want something different out of our house. And that's really caused the housing market around the globe to be on fire. And so, what I say to that is that what it's also done is pushed the real estate professional in our industry like 10 years forward, 2 or 3 months. So whether it's from a technology perspective or an efficiency perspective, we're all learning to do things differently and in a way that serves the consumer better, that I think is going to be great for the industry and great for everybody involved. And it pushed us outside of our comfort zone, like quickly, on necessity versus, us kind of evolving with it. So it's been interesting from that perspective. And I think that, we as, just, human beings are kind of learning how to adapt and learning how to move forward given a different set of circumstances. And I think it just speaks to, again, the human will and the fact that we are, so adept at continuing to evolve ourselves and move forward, whether that be through, again, something like a technology tool or something that pushes us forward, or just the way that we go about our relationships. I mean, how many different, virtual celebrations have you been part of, or seen, how people have reinvented weddings and all kinds of crazy things. It's just, we are social animals, and I can't wait to go back to that face-to-face in-person stuff. But I think our world's changed in a lot of ways for the better, and to be more effective and efficient as humans.
I consider myself equal parts of nerd and athlete. And so this is more of a nerdy technical kind of question. It's in the same vein of the market. And so as a wealth manager, someone who looks at the markets and understands economic cycles, and knowing that in my world with stocks and different things, there's usually a 10-year run. There's usually a 10-year bull market. Things are good. There's always a correction, lasts about a year to 2 years. The corrections where things kind of downturn. It could be kind of recession-like. And then we pick back up and we just cyclically move up. And that's the same thing kind of for real estate. Real estate always grows, gets stronger, more wealthy, and then the market corrects. And then you kind of have, different things that may be man-made or not man-made that affect these things. My question becomes, we've seen corrections over the last, since Corona with the stock market, but real estate's held pretty strong. And real estate, even in Georgia, I could speak to Georgia specifically because I'm a personal investor and my clients invest in real estate in different levels. The housing market is slightly overpriced here, where you're paying a little bit more than, the house could be worth. So the first question is, currently, do you see any changes coming down the pipe in terms of real estate values? And then the second part is the future, where you have things like baby boomers that are going to be completely retiring or passing on their wealth or getting out of the market altogether. And they might be downsizing, they might be moving. And so there may be more inventory coming up. So as far as today, where there's no inventory, what do you see happen with this in terms of pricing? And then down the road, what do you see happening?
Yeah, it's strictly supply and demand. You hit on the head. And I think, inventory is at an all-time historic low. There's literally 1 million plus or minus homes available for sale here in the US, which is like a 2-month supply, which is an all-time historic low since NAR has been keeping track of it. At the same time, to your point, because of that, prices moved up literally 105 straight months year over year in a row. So, across the country, I think the median sales price is about $309,000 or $310,000. And Jesse, honestly, it's because you've got baby boomers who are living longer. They're aging in place. They want to stay in their homes and their communities and be part of that. And then you have 90 million millennials who are forming families and having kids, and now because of this pandemic, need more space and want to get out of maybe the condo in New York City or in downtown Atlanta and move out to the suburbs. And so we just, as a country, quite candidly, we haven't been building enough real estate here for people to house our population and to house the amount of household formations that we have as a country. And that's only going to continue to get worse unless we can get creative in trying to figure that out. So it's specifically supply and demand. And look, I do think, like you said, all things, especially in real estate, are cyclical. Things will move up, things will move down. But I do think from an overall psyche perspective, like the home is not what it was a year ago.
Right.
It's changed in what it means to people and what it means to families because of this new environment that we're in, with people working from home and doing a lot more things from their houses.
What are some, and it's even given me pause and perspective, because there was months where I wasn't even coming to my office and spending a monthly rent, just wasting money. And as a financial planner, that killed me every day. I'm like, I'm pissing away money that I could be doing something else with. And so it's reframed my perspective too. But what are some of the things that you're looking at, either personally or through the company, that can be a pivot moving forward, and maybe repurposing commercial buildings or just, what are some maybe potential ways that we can prepare for this?
Yeah, I mean, again, when I say we got pushed outside of our comfort zone, I truly mean it in that, I think forever, the business world in this country always felt like, hey, like you got to go into the office, you got to show up at 9 and leave at 5. And, we as an organization, we're actually looking at moving our folks to more virtual, right? We're talking about subleasing out. We had roughly 280,000 square feet in a beautiful suburb here, right on the Manhattan train line in North Jersey. And we're talking about subleasing some of that space out because we found out that people are more effective, more efficient, and happier working from home. And look, I don't think it's going to be 5 days a week that I'm sitting here in my home office in the near future when people are vaccinated and we get back to some normalcy. But I do think that people like who were traveling into New York City and in there 5 days a week are now saying, you know what? I don't need a place in Manhattan. In fact, I could even move out on the train line in an hour or 2 hours because I'm only going to the office once or twice a week. And so can I get a lower tax base? Can I get more property? Can I get a better school system if I move out further in the suburbs? And I think you're seeing that phenomenon all over the country and around the globe. Now, will the big cities come back? Absolutely. I mean, they just will. They're cyclical, and it's just, people enjoy that way of life and all those other things. But I do think that this has given us the confidence to know that we can do things because of technology in a more effective, efficient, and cheaper manner based on the way that we were pushed, like I said, probably 5 or 10 years ahead of time in these last 12 months.
One last thing I got for you, brother, is I'm always learning. I'm always looking to grow. So current thought leaders, or it could be any thought leader that's been around, someone who's an inspiration to you, a podcast, a book, something that you're learning from, like what has shaped you, or what are you currently plugging into to keep leveling up in life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't read as much as I should. And I've told myself this year, one of my New Year's resolutions is to read more books. From a business and entrepreneurial standpoint, I share this book a lot, but if you haven't read it, it's an older book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, who I got the opportunity to meet last year. And it just talks a little bit about not working in the business every day, no matter what business you're in, but working on your business, right? And that goes to all the things we talked about, is like, time management and the right mindset and spending time on the activities that are meaningful in what you're trying to accomplish versus getting caught up in all the other chatter and stuff that really doesn't make a difference. So if you haven't read that book, I strongly suggest it to the audience. And like I said, it doesn't have to be reading a book. It could be, like you said, learning a new podcast, right? Maybe listening to other great people who you have on your show that have been successful and can just give you that one little hack or one little tweak that could make all the difference.
It's been a masterclass for me, man. This whole podcast, adventure, whatever you want to call it, man. The last 2 years and months, the people that I've met, the relationships that I've built, the business opportunities that come from it, the friendships that have come from it, and just the little things that I've learned from every single person as that ever student, it's completely added so much color and value to my life. So first and foremost, I want to be the first one to say thank you from the Jesse T Show Nation, to say you're amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. He's the mighty, the powerful Mike Miedler. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.